y'all doing today? Cheryllee back with another video. So a little BB and CC in the background. So I'm Cheryl from the Everything Cheryllee brand. So you can find me on Instagram, everything underscore Cheryllee, TikTok at all things Cheryllee, or everything Cheryllee, on YouTube, everything Cheryllee. So everything Cheryllee on all platforms. So I usually talk about business law, accounting, information systems, because my major was information systems and business in college, Strand University. We started out as a college, Strand College. By the time I finished and received my degree, it was a university, because I guess the time that I entered Strand University, they probably were already going to, make it a university. So, but it's all good. Strand College, Strand University. So most of my content on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. I don't do Facebook too much, but I used to do Facebook, but I don't, so mostly business accounting, information systems, and maybe some law items, because I did take business law when I was down Strand University. So, but today I'm not going to talk too much about business. So I think in a few of my previous videos, I talk about how you can build an information system. What is an information system? How can you, I do talk about marketing, advertising, and promoting your business, your marketing niche, your marketing channels, measures you should take to try to outcompete your competitors, things of that nature. But I'm not going to talk too much about those items today. I just want to introduce few people from our history. So I might get into a few items from my law book as well. But I want to talk a little bit about slavery today and how slavery came about. I want to talk, and then I want to mention a few people that were very instrumental in trying to have slavery abolished. Okay, so let's start out with how slavery came about. Okay, throughout the 17th and the 18th century, people were kidnapped from Africa and forced into slavery. So did you hear that? I guess our ancestors, I would call that, that's what I would call them. Our ancestors were kidnapped from the continent of Africa and forced into slavery. It says the American colonies and expected to work. They were kidnapped and forced into slavery from Africa, and they were expected to work as indentured servants and labor in the production of crops such as tobacco and cotton. So that's the history we know of it. From history, when we in school, in high school, elementary school, that's what we learned. We learned that they were kidnapped from Africa, forced on this slave ship, and was forced to work for no money, work for, picking cotton and tobacco and cotton, and they didn't get any money. And then they also I guess everybody learned about the house slaves too. So in other words, they had the slaves that were in the cotton field and the tobacco field, I guess I would say. And then they had the house slaves where those slaves were, I could say that they were babysitting, taking care of the master's children. And then also we heard tales of some of the slave masters having relations with the slaves. Having relations with the slaves, but I'm not going to go into all that. But So 17th and 18th century, people were kidnapped from the continent of Africa, and they were forced into slavery in the American colony. They were expected to work. Well, they did work. They worked as slaves. They worked as indentured servants. So indentured servants, those were people that worked. When they worked, they just they didn't get money, but they got their passage paid for. So in other words, if they were going to take a trip out of town or wherever they were going, they did the work. They worked and they had their passage paid. So they traveled. Basically, their traveling fees. They had their traveling fees paid for. They did the work and they had those were the indentured servants. But the slaves, they worked for free. They were not able to file taxes or none of that, so they lost a whole lot. They lost a lot of education, a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills. They just, slaves just lost everything. So that's why they were talking about reparations for some of the families of of our ancestors, slaves. But let me get into a few people that were instrumental in trying to abolish slavery. Abolish means to get rid of slavery. So Frederick Douglass was number one. He was against slavery. He was anti-slavery. Anti-slavery means anti means against slavery. So Frederick Douglass was born into slavery in Maryland in the 1800s. He was the first African American citizen to hold a high position in the U.S. government. When Douglass was sold, the wife of his owner taught Douglass the alphabet. I guess I would make it plural. Despite the ban on teaching slaves to read and write, Douglass's ability to read refined his political views and human rights ideology and gave him the impetus to do something about it. So in other words, Frederick Douglass was born into slavery, and so when he was sold, the slave master's wife taught him the ABCs, all the alphabets. So from there, he started venturing out and learning how to do other things, writing papers, writing books. So it says when Douglass was sold, the wife of his owner taught Douglass the alphabets. Despite the ban, they had a ban on teaching slaves to read and write. So it was a ban on teaching slaves to read and write, but Douglass's slave master's wife taught him the alphabets. Basically, taught him how to read. So let me see what else. So according to my research, and it says also Frederick Douglass was an American social reformer, abolitionist. He was fighting to abolish slavery. So he was an abolitionist, orator, writer, statesman. He escaped slavery in Maryland, became a national leader of the abolitionist movement in Massachusetts and New York. And he had some papers that he wrote about on anti-slavery. He had some anti-slavery writings. So it said, and also when he escaped, he was at that time he became an activist, author, public speaker, and he fought to end slavery before and during the Civil War. I guess that he did that after he escaped. So that was Frederick Douglass, and then we also have someone named Harriet Beecher. She wrote a book called Uncle Tom's Cabin. And Uncle Tom's Cabin, that book, so also she was a slave too. But the book talked about how bad the slaves were treated. Now, I might try to get that book. I want to read that book. She wrote Uncle Tom's Cabin, a novel that conveyed the harsh reality of African American slaves in the United States. She was an author and abolitionist of Uncle Tom's Cabin. Right, it tells the story of Uncle Tom depicted as a saintly, dignified slave. So Uncle Tom was a slave. It says, it tells the story of a saintly, dignified slave. While being transported by boat to auction in New Orleans, Tom saved the life of a little girl named Eva, and who's grateful. Her father was grateful that he saved her life, and so that's when the father decided to purchase Frederick Douglass. Not Frederick Douglass, Harriet Beecher Stowe. Harriet Beecher Stowe. Eva and Tom became best friends. So Harriet Beecher Stowe was an author and an abolitionist. She worked with Frederick Douglass, and Harriet Tubman, and others to abolish slavery. So they're saying, according to my research, a lot of what came out of the movement, I guess, for the abolitionists trying to abolish slavery. That's what started the Civil War, because they felt Frederick Douglass and others felt that the Constitution, it was unconstitutional to hold, them and others as slaves. So that's what started this Civil War. So, that's Harriet Beecher Stowe. So, Uncle Tom's Cabin, that was the book that she wrote, and that was about a slave. It was about a slave. The slave name was Tom. Let me go back to make sure. Yeah, Uncle Tom's Cabin tells the story of Uncle Tom, depicted as a saintly, dignified slave. So that's a good book to read up on, so check that out. Read more on Frederick Douglass, Harriet Beecher Stowe, and her novel that she wrote, Uncle Tom's Cabin, which talked about a slave named Tom. It said he was a saintly, dignified slave. While being transported by boat to auction in New Orleans, Tom, the slave, he was a slave at the time. He saved the little girl's life. So when he saved her life, then the father purchased. The father purchased him. Harriet Beecher Stowe was a slave, so he was purchased by the little girl's father because he was so happy that Harriet Beecher Stowe had saved his daughter's life. So then we have Harriet Tubman. In 1869, Tubman married a Civil War veteran named Nelson Davis. In 1874, the couple adopted a baby girl named Gertie. And Harriet Tubman, she helped thousands of slaves escape. And also, she led the troops in the combat. And also, they said she suffered from narcolepsy. She cured a disease called, they didn't have it on here, but she cured a disease. They said she was 91 when she died, Harriet Tubman. So we have right around where I live at, 1 block over, we have Harriet Tubman Elementary School. So my children didn't go to that school, but they went further up the hill. But I said she was buried with full military honors. And she was they called her Moses, because they called her Moses because she would help slaves escape slavery. What they would do, they would wait till they got dark and then hide, ducking down behind trees and in the pond and different places. Nighttime, because the best time for them to try to get away. So they called her Moses. And it says she avoided cops, dogs, mobs, bounty hunters, but she had a bounty on her back because she was helping the slaves. She was helping the slaves escape, so she had a bounty on her back. She said she avoided cops. They said she avoided cops, dogs, mobs, bounty hunters, and slave catchers. She and her escapees slept in swamps and moved at night. So they slept in swamps, moved at night so they wouldn't be seen, So that is Harriet Tubman. And so she served as a nurse, cook, and a spy to federal troops from 1862 to 1865. And then when she was trying to file for her veterans compensation, according to my research, it took her 34 years, as we said, it took her 34 years to get her veterans compensation. And they gave her $200 for 3 years of combat service, so she wasn't paid what she deserved. She was the first woman to lead a combat assault. So she was a nurse, among other things. She was an abolitionist nurse, and nurse too. She was an abolitionist nurse, cook, so she did it all. She was like superwoman. So that is Harriet Tubman. And then we have Sojourner Truth, born into slavery as well. So Frederick Douglass was born into slavery. Sojourner Truth born into slavery. Sojourner Truth born into slavery in New York. All these different states that permitted slavery. The Constitution permitted slavery. So I'm like, really? It says, born into slavery in New York, became an important voice in the fight for racial and gender equality. Her speech, Ain't I a Woman? It delivered at the Ohio Women's Rights Convention in 1851. And it says, this is something different right here, but it says, by the beginning of the Civil War, 255,000 individuals, both black and white, involved in anti-slavery. That is working. Anti-slavery is like, you something like an abolitionist as well. 255,000 individuals, both black and white, involved in the anti-slavery and abolitionist movement in the United States. It said by the beginning of the Civil War, 255,000 individuals, both black and white. So blacks and whites were working together as well. So by the beginning of the Civil War, 255,000 individuals, black and white. So in other words, they all were working toward abolishing slavery. And they felt that the Constitution, that was unconstitutional for you to hold slaves. And it says, I think that's it, that's Sojourner Truth. So, okay, the next person I had was, let's see, let's talk about Dred Scott. The Dred Scott Decision. The Dred Scott was a slave as well. He was born a slave too. No, it says, don't say he was born a slave. It says Dred Scott, he was a slave. He was a slave who resided in a free state and territory where slavery was prohibited, was not thereby entitled to his freedom. So was a slave who resided in a free state. He was a slave, but he resided in a free state. So he went to court. So he felt that he was, if he was in a free state, then he should be free. But if you're a slave in a free state, you're still a slave. So that's what he had to go to court because the Dred Scott Decision, it was Dred Scott versus John F.A. Sanford. So it said, in other words, he was a slave, but he traveled to when they say he resided in a free state and territory where slavery was prohibited. So was not thereby entitled to his freedom. So it said African Americans were not and could never be citizens of the United States, and that the Missouri Compromise in 1820, which had declared free all territories west of Missouri and north of latitude 36 and 30, was unconstitutional. So it says African Americans were not and could never be citizens. It says of the United States, and that the Missouri Compromise, which had declared free all territories west of Missouri and north of latitude 36 and 30, was unconstitutional. So certain areas they had certain sections that they had slaves were free, but in the other section they were not free. So they felt that was unconstitutional. It said African Americans were not and could never be citizens of the United States, and that the Missouri Compromise, which had declared free all territories west, or all territories west of Missouri were free. All territories west of Missouri, those slaves were free. But they said they felt that was unconstitutional. Because what about on the other side, on the east side? If that was the west side, what about the east side, or the north, or the south side? So all those type of things pushed the country closer to the Civil War. So a little bit more, something else on Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman became one of the most important conductors of the Underground Railroad. They call those the safe houses. Brilliant, brave, she was brilliant, brave, making the trip to the South at least 19 times in order to guide more African American slaves to freedom. So she made trips back and forth. They said she freed thousands of slaves. She helped free thousands of slaves. And some of the slaves she said, look, you don't come, you're going to die. Gotta go, let's roll, let's go. So she was on her game. They called her Moses. So they would leave at nighttime. She would sneak the slaves out at night. Harriet Tubman. Sneak the slaves out at night. They would, duck down in the swamps, trees, or wherever, duck down at night and make their getaway. And she had a bounty on her back because she was helping so many slaves. She was helping so many slaves to freedom. She had a bounty on her back because they weren't going like that. They felt, but that was in the Constitution, that they could have slaves. It was legal. So when it was something legal, you trying to help them escape, you going against the Constitution. You going against the law of that state. Several states had, some states didn't have slavery, but some of them did. So she had a bounty on her back, So that was Harriet Tubman. Then we have another gentleman by the name of William Lloyd. William Lloyd, he was a Christian, Antichrist, abolitionist, journalist, a suffragist, and social reformer. He said, I will be as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. I will be as harsh as truth and as uncompromising as justice. So he was also an American journalistic crusader. He helped lead the successful abolitionist campaign against slavery in the United States. So he helped lead the people to try to get rid of slavery. He was an abolitionist like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, William Lloyd. You can also look him up. Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, William Lloyd. And I should have, we know about Rosa Parks as well, but we know Rosa Parks. I didn't do her, but Rosa Parks, she was the one that sat on she got on the bus and she sat down because she was tired, just got off of work. And then they wanted her to get up, give her seat up for a white person. And she's like, no, I'm not giving my seat up, I'm tired, I just got off work. So that's how that went down. So William Lloyd Garrison, he was an abolitionist as well. Abolitionists, they wanted to abolish slavery, abolishment and get rid of. So in 1830, William Lloyd started an abolitionist paper called The Liberator. I know Frederick Douglass wrote a paper too. I know he wrote some papers too. In 1832, he helped form the New England Anti-Slavery Society. The Civil War ended slavery. So all that, they had them running around and trying to abolish slavery and starting all these anti-slavery society movements and different anti-slavery. I guess they did like they did, well, here it says anti-slavery society, but they did some other things and they worked together to try to abolish slavery. So I guess all those actions that they took led to Civil War because they was fighting. In other words, you fighting your opposition. You're on this side, you're against slavery. On this side, the people those people were for slavery. And then, so that started the Civil War. He argued that free states and enslaved states should in fact be made separate. And that's William Lloyd Garrison. He started an abolitionist paper, The Liberator, and also he was an abolitionist too. So he was working with Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman tried to abolish slavery. He argued that free states and enslaved states should be in fact free states and slave states should in fact be made separate. They should have been separate. So then I have one more, and it's his name is, I think it's the last one. Oh no, two more. Just the last two. Okay, we have somebody named John Brown. John Brown, he helped slaves find refuge along the route of the Underground Railroad. So he helped them find refuge, freedom. He helped them find freedom by a route, that led them to the Underground Railroad. So in other words, he was more than likely met up with Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and them. But they were all going to the same route. So he said he helped slaves find refuge along the route of the Underground Railroad. Formed the League of Gileadites, a group formed to protect black citizens. So he formed this group to help protect black citizens. Also helped with the Underground Railroad route, getting slaves to, getting the slaves on the right path so they can reach the Underground Railroad. There was a safe house. It was considered a safe house so they could make their escape. And John Brown, he was captured. They were gunning for them because they were helping the slaves. So Harriet Tubman, she had a bounty on her back. And John Brown, he was captured during a failed raid on Harpers Ferry. So you can also look that up to Harpers Ferry. And they say this is at the end of my research, it says slavery still exists today. They say that Haiti has a problem with slavery when it comes to children. So I have to read up more on that, so I didn't go into that. So that John Brown, he was also a person that helped the slaves reach the Underground Railroad. He said he helped slaves find refuge along the route of the Underground Railroad. So there's John Brown. So you had Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, John Brown, you had Dred Scott, and Harriet Beecher wrote the book Uncle Tom's Cabin, which was about a slave that saved the life of his master's child, and then so that slave master paid for him, bought him, and then him and the child became good friends. So that was Frederick Douglass. Frederick Douglass and a slave master child became good friends. So I think the last one I have is so we have a gentleman, he was from Haiti, a slave, he lived in Haiti and he was a slave. So a slave who lived in Haiti in the late 1700s before moving to New York City with his masters after he gained his freedom following the death of his mistress His name was Pierre Toussaint. I forgot to say his name. Pierre Toussaint. He was a slave who lived in Haiti. So after his mistress passed away, he gained his freedom. So Toussaint dedicated his life to philanthropy and charitable works. He founded an orphanage, an employment bureau, and a traveler refugee home. He raised funds to build St. Patrick's Cathedral, which you can still see in New York City today. And is known as a leading black. He was known as a leading black New Yorker. So he was from Haiti. So in the late 1700s, before moving to New York City with his master, after he gained his freedom following the death of his mistress, he dedicated his life to philanthropy, charitable works. He founded an orphanage, employment bureau, and a traveler refugee home. So that's good. He made it out of slavery. So he lived in Haiti. So probably, I have to do more research on that because I don't want to speak on something I don't know anything about. But I did research. I found this gentleman here. So his name is Pierre Toussaint, Pierre, last name Toussaint. So you can always look him up, find out more about him, find out more about Haiti, what's going on over there with their situation. So I think that was the last one. But just to reiterate the beginning. So when we hear people a lot of times, sometimes people get mad. They may say, "Well, why y'all going on back to Africa? How you gonna tell somebody to go back to Africa?" The Africans were kidnapped, forced into slavery. So it ain't like it's not like our ancestors were over there chilling back watching TV, and then we came over to the United States. We came over here. So Africa is a continent. But so it's not like our ancestors were over there, like I said, chilling, watching TV, kicking back. They were forced on that slave ship. So people say go back to Africa, you just say, hey, well, you know what? Our ancestors were forced on those slave ships, kidnapped from Africa, forced on slave ships, forced to come over and pick cotton and tobacco and work in the house as a house slave, for no pay, raising slave masters' children. And just wanted to give a little history on slaves and how slavery came about. And it was not unconstitutional in the beginning. They had it. It was in the Constitution. That's why they were right when they held slaves in certain states. It was wrong. To us it was wrong, but it was in the Constitution. It was right. It was not unconstitutional when it first started out, but as it moved on, when they were fighting against it, abolitionists like Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and Harriet Beecher and all the ones that I mentioned just today, they felt that it was unconstitutional to even hold slaves. So that is it right there. So Africans were kidnapped. Our ancestors kidnapped, forced on those slave ships, and forced to work in different homes. A lot of people held slaves. Even they said some of the presidents held slaves, owned slaves. So they were forced to work in the cotton field, working in the backyard, picking cotton, tobacco, didn't make any money. So they lost a lot. That's why they were talking about giving some of the families reparations, because they lost so much time. All the years, how many years, you can't get those years back. You working 20, 30 years in somebody else's yard, picking cotton and tobacco and not getting paid, not being able to file no taxes, not even able to support your family, not able to support your family. So that's why a lot of people get upset when they people talk about slavery like we're not supposed to feel no type of way about it, but that's like we look at that as like that's our family. So you think about somebody doing something to your family, then that's we feel that you did like that. They were our ancestors, but hey, they were African Americans. They were our family. Yeah, that's our family. Those are our ancestors. So we're going to feel some type of way. But you have to try to move on because, try to move on when you think about it. It wasn't you personally, and it probably wasn't your mother and your father, but just to think about the way they did things and to think that it was constitutional. It was in the Constitution that they had a right to hold slaves in certain states, and they kidnapped them from Africa, threw them on a slave ship, and brought them over there and made them work. So think about that type of stuff. It's like, what gave them the right to do something like that? But so that's how that went down. But do more research. So I just felt I wanted to bring that forward today because I hadn't talked about that, slavery in a while. So I said, let me do a little research on that. But there's some other names that I probably want to do another video because it's a whole lot more that I want to talk about when it came to that. So, and I also want to check out that book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. I want to check out that. And I want to read more on Dred Scott Decision. So, basically, according to my research, the judge said that he was a slave, but when he was in a free state, that didn't make him free because he was a slave. So whether or not you were in a free state or not, you still was a slave. So that's what the outcome was. But I do want to read more up on that. So that's the Dred Scott Decision, Uncle Tom's Cabin, with that book that Harriet Beecher wrote, Uncle Tom's Cabin. But so that is that on that. So I have a little more time left, so just want to see. It's a book right here. When I was in my time down at State University, it's a business law. My business law book, so. So let me see what terms I can come across in this law book that let's see, just a few little things. Okay, let me see if I can find so just trying to see if I can find something interesting to let's see, I'm going to go to the table of contents. Okay, let me go over some of the amendments. There are 27 amendments to the Constitution. Okay, the first one we have freedom of speech and religion, freedom of the press, the right to bear arms and set up a militia, amendment number 2. Number 3, I guess it should say, I thought it would say no quartering, but it said the quartering of soldiers. Well, it says prohibited. So I would say no quartering of soldiers in your home. Fourth Amendment, search and seizure. No search and seizure unless by probable cause. So in other words, they can't search your home and seize anything without some probable cause. A probable cause, a reasonable suspicion. In other words, if they have a reasonable suspicion to say that you have some, drugs in your home or car or your person, that gives them probable cause. So probable cause and reasonable suspicion. Then we had the Fifth Amendment, grand juries, double jeopardy, self-incrimination, due process, and eminent domain. So eminent domain, that's when the government want to value property, they have to compensate you for that. That's called eminent domain. So then you also have a due process. That's the Fifth Amendment. So that's when you have a due process means you're entitled to a fair trial. Fair trial in the justice system. And then we have Amendment number 6, procedures allowed in criminal cases. Amendment number 7, that's when you are entitled to a jury trial. Jury trials in common law cases are guaranteed. Then we have Amendment number 8, which is the Bill of Rights. So the first 10 amendments to the Constitution are the Bill of Rights. Cruel and unusual punishment prohibited. Amendment number 9, people retain other rights. Amendment number 10, powers reserved to the states. Amendment number 11, lawsuits against the states. Amendment 12, president and the vice president elected together. So amendment number 12, president and the vice president elected together. And then we have amendment 13, abolish slavery. Slavery is abolished. So I was just talking about it. That's the 13th Amendment. Slavery was abolished. 14th Amendment, equal protection of the law, due process, citizenship. 15th Amendment, voting rights guaranteed. 16th Amendment, the income tax is established. Income tax established. 17th Amendment, senators elected by direct election. So senators by direct election. So the election, so they're elected by direct election. 18th Amendment, prohibition established. 19th Amendment, women given the right to vote. 19th Amendment, women, we received our right to vote. The 19th Amendment. 13th Amendment, slavery was abolished. So some of you can remember, First Amendment, freedom of speech, religion, freedom of the press. Second Amendment, the right to bear arms. And we got also Amendment number 20, terms of the president, vice president, senators, and representatives altered. 21, prohibition repealed. 22, president's term limited to 2 terms. 22, president's term limited to 2 terms, so they served 8 years. 23rd Amendment, Washington, D.C. gets electors. 24th Amendment, home taxes outlawed. 25th Amendment, disability of the president, vacancies in the vice presidency. So disability of the president, vacancies in the vice presidency. I guess that means the disability in the presidencies. If something happens to the president, then the vice president has to take over. 26, vote extended to 18-year-olds, so you have to be 18 years old to vote. 27th Amendment, Congress prevented from voting itself instant pay raises. So Congress cannot vote instant pay raises for themselves. So, remember, the first one is the easiest one. First Amendment, freedom of speech, religion, freedom of the press. So, in other words, you can practice whatever type of religion you want to practice. Christianity, Baptist, Judaism, Buddhism, whatever. That's the First Amendment. So let's see what else we have in this book. Let me put the acronym just right on. It's a little hot there. So let's talk about, I talked about this last time, I think I did. Okay, elements of a crime. 2 elements necessary to create criminal liability are an act and a requisite state of mind. Act and a requisite state of mind. So that reminds me of the 2 terms that I learned. Mens rea and actus rea. And right in this course right here. In this lower course. Mens rea, actus rea. So mens rea is when you have that state of mind that you want to commit a crime. Mens rea is like your mind. Actus rea, that means you actually acted out and you committed a crime. So that is probably what they're talking about. Mens rea, actus rea. Let's say the 2 elements necessary to create a liability, to create criminal liability, are an act and the requisite state of mind. Although it is difficult to generalize about both of these concepts, certain characteristics are common to each. It says, regardless of jurisdiction, nevertheless, keep in mind that criminal law is largely statutory in nature. It says, consequently, specific statutory definitions may vary from state to state. So we have the criminal act. We have the criminal act, the requisite state of mind. So, what about purpose? Individuals act with purpose when they act with the intention to cause a result that does in fact occur. So they act in purpose. So you committed a crime, you purposely did it, you did it on purpose. You didn't do it intentionally, and you didn't do it recklessly, you did it intentionally, you did it on purpose. So that is one of the elements of a crime. The elements, you have the criminal act, you have the requisite state of mind, you have the purpose, you have knowledge, you have recklessness, you have negligence. So you have negligence, you also have the matter of motive. So in negligence, that's one of the elements of a crime too. These are all the elements of a crime. Criminal act, requisite state of mind, purpose, knowledge, recklessness, negligence, and the motive, and the matter of motive. So let's just talk about the negligence. People act with negligence when they fail to see the possible negative consequences of their action. It says a young woman who cleans a hunting rifle without checking to see if it is loaded would be acting with negligence. So that's negligence. You'll be negligent. You cleaned a gun and didn't check to see whether it was loaded or not, and it went off and hurt somebody. That's negligence. And then we have a recklessness. A person who acts with recklessness shows a perverse disregard of a known risk of negative consequences. People act recklessly when they are indifferent to such a risk. If 2 drivers were to challenge one another to an illegal drag race on a public highway, they would be acting recklessly. In other words, they would have disregarded the possible serious consequences of their decision to engage in an illegal drag race. Turn the TV down a little bit. I'm going to have to turn it down real low. So in other words, they're acting reckless. You would be acting recklessly if you were drag racing. Recklessly, you drag racing on a public highway. you should be able to foresee that that may be a problem, because you should foresee the danger in that. So they say that is reckless, that is acting recklessly. So then we have the other one I read: purpose, knowledge, recklessness, knowledge. When people act with an awareness that a particular result will probably occur. So that's knowledge. They act with knowledge. For instance, if the same young man discussed where to take the loaded gun to a crowded shopping mall, and when he began firing at random, not aiming at anyone in particular, he would be acting with the knowledge that he would probably hit a lot of people and would either wound or kill those people. So in other words, he would be acting with knowledge. If the same young man would be acting with knowledge, if he took a gun and went to the mall and just started shooting, even if he wasn't aiming at nobody, he should still know that there may be a chance that he may hit somebody with those bullets. So like I said, those are elements of a crime: criminal act, reckless state of mind, purpose, knowledge, recklessness, negligence, and the last one is the matter of motive. So definitely, an element of a crime would be a motive, because you're gonna have a motive. That person would have a motive to do what they did, commit that crime. Motive in criminal law is the wrongdoer's reason for committing the crime. One common misconception about criminal law, which is promoted and perpetuated by countless television programs and motion pictures, is that motive is an element of criminal liability. Such is not the case. They say motive is an element of criminal liability. They say that's not the case, though. It says such is not the case. Establishing motive may help investigators pinpoint the guilty party, but proving an evil motive is not necessary for a criminal conviction. Conversely, establishing the existence of a good motive, it will rarely absolve a defendant of criminal liability. So it says, look, establishing the existence of a good motive will rarely absolve a defendant of criminal liability. So in other words, even if you have a good motive, it still might not absolve you from the criminal liability, because if you have a good motive, but if they still have evidence against you, if the evidence is very damaging against you, that's what they're saying. So they're saying establishing existence, even if they establish an existence of a good motive. So let's see, I read that the last time, the defenses of criminal liability. I'm not going to go back into that. So, not going to hold this video too long, but let me see what let's go into something called tort law. We have tort law, we have criminal law. We have tort law, we have criminal law. A tort law is a private wrong that injures another person's physical well-being. Tort law. So a private wrong that injures another person's physical well-being. So we have the tort law versus criminal law. Primary purpose of tort law is to compensate the victim. That's tort law. The primary purpose of tort law is to compensate the innocent party by making up for any loss suffered by that victim. Another objective is to protect potential victims by deterring future torturous behavior. Criminal law involves a public wrong. So tort law is a private wrong when you injure a person. Criminal law is a public wrong. So in other words, a wrong against society is criminal law. So you notice that certain cases they say, well, blah, blah, blah versus blah, blah, blah. So it's a wrong against society. So when you hit somebody in the face or something, that's an assault. But when you put a person in fear, If you put a person in fear, they're so scared of you that it's called assault. But when you actually hit them, that's the battery. So a lot of times they come together, assault and battery. So we have intentional torts. We have intentional torts. Intentional violations of duty include a variety of intentional torts, all of which have their own individual elements. We have assault and battery, false imprisonment, defamation. Okay, let's talk about assault and battery. Assault occurs when the victim is placed in fear. That's what I just said. Placed in fear or apprehension of immediate bodily harm. So you put somebody in fear of immediate bodily harm, that's assault. And also another thing, if most crimes are built on intent. That's what I learned in my business law class. But it's the same book I studied from. Same book I took my class with this book. So in other words, most crimes are built on intent. So in other words, if you walk down the street and you accidentally step on someone's shoes, that was an accident. There was no intent behind it. But if you intentionally take your foot and ram it on their foot, with the intent to harm, then that's a crime. So most crimes are built on intent. But if you accidentally bump into somebody when you're walking down the street, you didn't mean to do it. All you do is say, well, I'm sorry, apologize, but when you put that intent behind it, it becomes criminal. So we have assault, we have battery. We have a battery involved in offensive or harmful. That's what I just said. Unprivileged touching, that's the battery. Harmful, unprivileged touching. You touch somebody, they didn't want you touching, you put that intent behind that, you hit them hard like that, you intended to harm. False imprisonment, when one party prevents another party from moving about freely. So you have somebody, you say, don't go nowhere, you make them sit there, you threaten them, you making them sit there, they can't move nowhere, that's false imprisonment. This tort is called false, or it's also called false arrest. This tort is called false arrest in some states, or false imprisonment. And then we have defamation, slander, libel. So defamation, that's when you're talking about somebody, you're saying something about them that's not true, you're defaming their character. That's like you say somebody, you might say somebody had HIV or something like that, but they really didn't have it. That's defamation of character. So it says, look, any false statement communicated to others that harm a person's good name or reputation may constitute the tort of defamation. And then we have slander. Defamation in a temporary form, such as speech, is slander. So you say it out. You holler something, or you say something, you don't have to holler, but you say something that's not true about somebody, that's slander. And then we have libel. Then we have libel, that's like recordings or something. See, libel is like you're writing recordings or a disc or something like that, instead of writings, movies, video cassettes, like I said, recordings, laser disc, that's libel. So libel is like recordings, your laser disc, your recordings, your writings, your movies, your video cassettes. But slander is like spoken words. So you can't say that you can't make a lie about somebody and know it's not true, because you defaming their character. You slandering their name. So people can usually bring a libel suit even if they have suffered no actual loss. Whenever the permanent statement is damaging to their reputation, is false, and is communicated to a third party. So you say something about somebody that's false, you communicate it to a third party, then you can get sued. Let's see. So I think I'm gonna wrap this video up. I want to say thanks for joining me. Glad to see you. Glad you could be here. So just just talk a little bit about slavery in the beginning, how slavery came about, and then talk about different different contributors to the abolitionist movement and anti-slavery. I guess I say movement, an anti-slavery movement. Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Harriet Beecher, and so those were contributors to the anti-slavery movement and helping free slaves. So I think I want to one more term, another term called actual malice. This means that the statement was made or printed either with the knowledge that it was false or with a reckless disregard for its truth or falsity. So that's similar to, I guess you would have to have the actual malice. So I guess that's similar to defamation of character, slander, libel. It says the U.S. Supreme Court has given journalists the extra protection to the actual malice test when they write about public officials. It says under this test, a public official must prove not only that the statement made or printed was false, but also that it was made with actual malice. So that is just one of the elements they have to prove in order to win their case. They have to prove that it was actual malice. Actual malice means that the statement was made or printed either with the knowledge that it was false. So in other words, you print, like I said, the newspaper people they're talking about, they said the U.S. Supreme Court has given journalists. So if journalists print something that they know that's false pertaining to that particular person and they print it anyway, they can get sued too. So actual malice means that the statement was made or printed either with the knowledge that it was false. So in other words, they printed and they knew it was false, and it was just anger that they had in them. They knew it was false and they printed it anyway. That's trouble for them. So then we have negligence. We have elements of negligence. So negligence, we have that part of the tort law that is concerned with the compensation of accident victims. It says the issue before the court in a negligence action is under what circumstance can the actions of an illegal tortfeasor be labeled negligence so that the tortfeasor will be held liable. So in tort law, the tortfeasor, that's the one that committed the crime. So remember, tort law comes under a private wrong that you committed toward a person. Criminal law is criminal law deals with a crime committed against society. So it's like a public wrong. So tort law, private wrong, criminal law is like a public wrong. It says elements of negligence, breach of duty. Elements of negligence, breach of duty, defenses to negligence, contributory negligence, comparative negligence. Contributory negligence, the defense of contributory negligence involves the failure of the injured party to be careful enough to ensure personal safety. So in other words, you contribute to your own negligence. So you say the defense to contributory negligence involves the failure to the injured party to be careful enough to ensure personal safety. So you are partly responsible for your own injury. So that's what that means. Then you have comparative negligence. To soften the harsh effects of contributory negligence, many states have adopted comparative negligence statutes that require courts to assign damages according to the degree of fault of each party. The degree of fault for each party, comparative negligence. Assumption of the risk. So you assume the risk. They tell you don't go out there. That's why they always put a sign up when they mop a floor or wax a floor. You notice they have a sign up. Be careful. It's wet right here. The floor's still wet, and you go and walk on it anyway. You assuming the risk. So it says assumption of the risk. Let's see if they have a case. Another defense to negligence is assumption of the risk, which involves the voluntary exposure of the victim to a known risk. If the injured party was aware of the danger involved in a situation and by his or her actions indicated a willingness to be exposed to the danger, they assume the risk. Then he or she assumed that risk. And awareness of the extent of the danger is, of course, primary consideration in awarding or denying damages. So the owner of a baseball stadium, for instance, might present this defense against a negligence charge of a spectator injured by a foul ball. The charge of inadequate protection might not hold if it can be shown that the injured party was aware of the risk of injuries from foul balls, which are associated with viewing such a sport. So, in other words, you're at a baseball game and you're sitting in the stands, but they tell you that you're sitting over there. There's a chance that the ball may come through. The ball may come over there where you're sitting or you're watching the game. And they say, well, balls may come over here, you sitting right down there down front. But in other words, you assume the risk. If they tell you and you still want to sit there, then you assume the risk. But you can still try your hand. But I'll be like, look, I'm watching the game. The ball, you never can tell when they're going to hit the ball over the stand because it has happened. It has happened. It has happened with balls, and they hit the ball. They're playing baseball. They hit the ball, and people have gotten killed. When the ball hit them. So I don't go to no baseball game, but so I'm gonna close on that note. So just a few little things that I wanted to just go over today. Let me see. I have to hit that because they always stopping the video. But I want to thank you for joining me today. Thank you for joining me today. Glad to see you. Glad you can be here. So, a lot of times you get to talking. So I bought a whole box of these. So, for fruit snacks, we get to talking about good life. So I want to say thank you for joining me today. Glad to see you. Glad you could be here. So I'm Cheryllee, or Everything Cheryllee brand, so you can find me at everything, all things Cheryllee, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. I don't be on Facebook right now. I used to be on there, but I don't be on Facebook no more. Facebook or Twitter. I think I do have an account on Twitter, but I don't even use it no more. But comment below, subscribe below. I hope to see you on my next video. A little Usher in the background. So, I was talking to my brother one day. He said, sis, you were talking. He said, sis, you can talk. He said, you were talking, and you were talking. I left the room, and I came back. You were still talking. I said, yeah. That's what I'm here for, to give you some information. So I talked about in the beginning how slavery came about. It was legal. It was legal. It was in the Constitution. I don't know if a lot of people know that, but it was legal. It was in the Constitution. Certain states, certain slave owners were permitted to own slaves. Own slaves. The slaves. They had the house slaves. What we learned. In high school we learned. Well, I don't know when we started learning about slavery. I don't remember. I know I learned it in school, but You know, you didn't learn about all the, we learned about the term abolitionist, but we didn't learn about all the abolitionists that worked together to try to, end slavery. We learned about the main ones like Rosa Parks, Frederick Douglass. We learned about Dred Scott Decision, Dred Scott, Harriet Beecher, and so we only learned about a few of those. But it's up to you. You can do your own research to find out more. So that's what I do all the time. So research, I make research my friends, because when I was in college, State University, all we did was research. But still, you don't have to go to college to do the research. So, no. Take it upon yourself to read more. Slavery, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglas, and because I want to read some more. So Africans were kidnapped from Africa, the continent of Africa. You have Africa, Asia, Europe. They were kidnapped from Africa, put on that slave ship. They were purchased. I guess they were purchased, but they were put on this ship. They were brought to certain states where they were owned by slave masters, being in the cotton field, tobacco, cotton, working for nothing, not able to file taxes. So that's what they were talking about, trying to get some of the ancestors, not the ancestors, but some of the families of the slaves, if any of them, in any relatives still, alive, I guess, I don't know. Reparations, so they were talking about reparations, but imagine, you working all the years, you lost, you worked, you couldn't file taxes, get no money, and well, I guess you lived at the slave master's house, but so that was that, but we could always do more research on that. So we learned some of that in school, but it's like school don't teach you everything. School doesn't teach you everything, so make research your friend. That's why I have a couple laptops, and what I'm recording on now is an HP desktop, and just some information system devices that I had for a while. Maybe I just bought a laptop, purchased this laptop this year. And I've just purchased this laptop and this printer this year, but this computer here I had for about 3 years. Well, this is an HP desktop. I had this for about 3 years. I had a laptop. I just got that I don't want to say got, but I just purchased the laptop and the printer this year. So that's all in one printer, fax, copier, scanner. But so, just get your equipment, get your information systems equipment, technology, get you something. You don't have to spend a lot of money. Just something you can sit at home and chill. Something you can sit at home and chill, do your own research. Many days I sit here, I'm on the internet, I'm on YouTube, my TV right here too. I'm on the internet, doing research, and also I'm working on my books. I write children's books as well, so you can also check me out in the Google Play Store and the ebooks by Cheryl Hubbard, Cheryle, and then my last name Hubbard. So I have 6 books in the Google Play Store and the ebooks. So my next goal is to try to get my books in Target, Walmart, or Kmart. Get them out in the stores. So they are in the Google Play and the ebooks right now. And also I am working on I think it's going to be 3 more. I don't know if I want to do a series or not. If I do it, it'll be 3 more in a series on relationships. So if it's not 3, it might just be 1. Then I might move to another topic. So the books that I have now, they are all 6 children's books. So I use my little cartoon characters for those. for those books. So, I want to branch off to some new topics, different topics for adults. So I wanted to do a book on relationships. You know, how to find a good man, how to find a good woman. You can win in your relationship if you do blah, 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 blah. These 5 things. You know, just throwing off the top of my head. Ideas off the top of my head, but I don't know exactly what the title will be yet, but then I might do another children's book and then do a relationship book next. So I'm just thinking, I've been doing my research trying to find out little Chris Brown and Drake in the background. So I'm tired. So I want to close out. I want to say thanks for joining me. Glad to see you. Glad to see you here. Glad to be here. And I hope to see you on my next video. So give me some ideas. Comment below. Subscribe below. Give me some ideas of what you might want me to talk about. Don't mind doing no research. If you have any items that you want me to review, I will be glad to review some items. So I say have a good one. And today is Saturday, so hope you have a nice rest of your weekend. And I want to say thanks for joining me, and I hope to see you again. So you all have a good one, and see you next time.